Hi, welcome to the Mystery School. My name's Darren. Today I'll be sharing the philosophy of the Mystery School with you. The Mystery School is a transformative educational environment that empowers you to transform into your greatness and create the life you love by teaching you the alchemical principles that enable you to live and create from your imagination and intuition. And the Mystery School is built upon the transformational treasure map of the hero's journey. And it's been artfully designed over the last 20 years to synergistically serve you to travel along your own unique hero's journey. What I'll be doing now is elaborating on the hero's journey, and in doing so, I'll be sharing the philosophy of the Mystery School with you. The core premise that the Mystery School is built on is that you, I, we are all magical, powerful beings, that we're divine beings. And that's also where the hero's journey begins, where the hero's journey starts, where it says that we're all born of royalty, which is symbolic of our divinity. And I like to call our royalty our greatness. And in being born of royalty, we're born with inherent gifts, those gifts being our imagination and intuition. And those inherent gifts are there for us to be able to create what we love and create the world that we love. And because we're beings of love, that's the ultimate end result. And so another way of putting that is, in being born of royalty, we're here to live our royalty. We're here to live our greatness. And it would be wonderful if we could all be born of royalty and just go straight ahead and live our royalty. That we could realize that we're powerful and magical beings, and that we have the ability to conceive of, receive what we love and bring it to life. But unfortunately, it doesn't happen that way. It doesn't work that way. And that's because we're all wounded in relationship to our royalty. We're all wounded in relationship to our greatness, which is another core premise of the Mystery School and the hero's journey. And the way the hero's journey phrases it or puts it is that there's a threat to life, which I call the wound. And the way that we form our wound and the way that you and your greatness create your wound is as a result of seeking 100% love from your mother of your royalty, of your greatness, and seeking 100% orientation from your father of your greatness. In other words, you wanted your mum to love and nurture your greatness, and you wanted your father to help to see your greatness and help orientate your greatness into the world. And none of us get that 100% love and 100% orientation. And when we don't, it really hurts. And what we do when that expectation isn't met, we have to come up with a reason as to why we didn't get the 100% love and 100% orientation. And what we do is we create beliefs and assumptions in order to do that, in order to rationalize, if you will, why we didn't get the love and orientation. For instance, if you didn't get 100% love from your mother, you make up, well, it must be because I'm unlovable. And that's one of the core beliefs that we make up. And another belief that we make up, if we didn't get 100% orientation from your father, is that, well, it must be because I'm not good enough. Because if I was good enough, then I would have got the orientation. And that's what I mean by we create beliefs and assumptions. And I work with the premise that we make up 12 core beliefs and assumptions. And of those core beliefs and assumptions, there are depression-based beliefs, fear-based beliefs, and anger-based beliefs. And I'll be exploring them in more depth in another video. But in terms of this core premise, what I'm actually unfolding is how your greatness actually creates your identity or your persona. And it does this, your greatness and our greatness does this by forming the beliefs and assumptions. Because what happens, it was as a result of being wounded and as a result of forming the beliefs and assumptions, we don't orientate to our greatness anymore. We orientate to the beliefs. And as a result of orientating to the beliefs, they become the foundation of the creation of a persona or an identity. And in Hero's Journey terms, that's called going into hiding, where we form our identity. And as I was saying, those beliefs form the foundation of our identity. And with our beliefs, we end up creating a pretend self. And as well as creating a pretend self, we create a pretend world within which we live. And so this is how your greatness creates your wound and creates your identity. And this is why most people don't go on to live their royalty, why most people don't go on to live their greatness. It's because we get so convinced by our beliefs, which generate our thoughts and feelings, that this is who we really are. But it's not who we really are, it's our pretend self. And you see this in great myths and stories. I love referring back to Harry Potter as an example of seeing this, what I call this individuation myth unfold, where if you look at Harry as an example, he's born of royalty in that he's the son of a witch and a wizard within a magical world. And his threat to life is when Voldemort tries to kill him. And he has the wound, he has the scar on his forehead, which is evidence of the threat to life. And as a result of that, he goes into hiding and he gets put into the Muggle world and is in hiding, living out within an identity in Privet Lane in Surrey. And while he's in that world, living out as a Muggle, he has no idea of who he really is. And he's convinced that that's the only world there is as well. And it's the same with us. And while we're living in that world, convinced that that's the only world there is, we're working within the assumption that we're separate, that we're not connected. Because that's the thing, is our greatness is actually connected to everything through love. Whereas as a result of the wound and the beliefs, we do work on this assumption that we're separate. And based on that assumption, we live in struggle and survival within that pretend world. And the only way that any hero or heroine can go on to actually live their royalty, just like with Harry, is to be trained. Where Harry had to go to Hogwarts to be trained, even though that magic was within him, he had to have that training to resurrect that magic and to become a wizard, which is his equivalent to living his royalty. And that's what the mystery school is all about. The mystery school is about training you in your imagination and intuition within a magical environment. It's my version of Hogwarts, so to speak. And because unless we're trained in our imagination or intuition, we still unconsciously live from our beliefs and assumptions. And it's that training that is the catalyst for the transformation. And that's exactly what I'm doing and having created the mystery school, and why it's dedicated and focused on resurrecting that inherent power that's within you. Because what it does, once you're trained in your imagination and intuition, it restores your greatness. It restores your sovereignty and your royalty, which I like to represent with a golden circle. I think a golden circle is a really great symbol of our greatness, of our royalty, of our soul. And that way, what happens is that once you've got that training, you've got that mastery over the pretend world, because you're not seeing yourself or identifying with your identity anymore. You're identifying with your greatness. And that's the big difference that the training makes. Because when we're living unconsciously from our beliefs and assumptions, we identify with our persona. Whereas when we're trained in our imagination and intuition, as I said, we identify with being our royalty. So it does give you dominion over the pretend world. And what it does also is that there's a pretend world and there's a magical world. And the magical world is the real world. And that training in your imagination and intuition also reveals as well as revealing who you are, it reveals what you love. And then you know that all you have to do is purposely go on your hero's journey, your heroine's journey, in order to both transform into your royalty and to bring to life and to resurrect the creations that you love. And that's where the next phase of the hero's journey comes in, when you go on your call to adventure. Because having revealed what's in your heart and what you love, you then purposely leave the grey box of the pretend world and step into the magical world. And that's where you're also heralded by your heart and your imagination and intuition into the real world of love and magic as a result. And that's where you're able to purposely step out of the pretend world rather, into the magical world. And the great thing about understanding this transformational treasure map, as I love to call it, of the hero's journey, is that you know that what you love and who you are is on the other side of a threshold. And you know that in order to live your royalty, it's about crossing that threshold. Because the next phase of the hero's journey is that you encounter threshold guardians. And this is one of the most, I think, one of the most delectable phases of the hero's journey, knowing that you're going to encounter threshold guardians. Because without understanding this, this is where we can easily give up on what we love and going for what we love. We can trip over the first hurdle and then just go crawling back again. And whereas when you understand that there is a threshold and that it's guarded, that you can then know that you can cross it. And so you can engage with that threshold and the threshold guardian purposefully. And that's one of the other benefits you have with being trained in your imagination and intuition. Because when we're living unconsciously from our beliefs and assumptions, we are easily scared off by the threshold guardians, because what the threshold guardians do is they trigger our doubts and fears. They trigger these core beliefs. And prior to being trained, and when we're orientated to our beliefs and assumptions, we actually think our thoughts and feelings are real. And we think our doubts and fears are real, and we react to them. So instead of crossing the threshold, what we do instead is we refuse to call, which is a very common phase and motif of the hero's journey. And this is what I call the pretend hero's journey. And this is one that I was on for over 14 years, doing all sorts of personal and spiritual development, because I assumed that in order to live my royalty, not that I called it that at the time, I thought I had to eliminate fear, that I had to have no fear whatsoever. But the reality is that when you realize that fear just comes from beliefs, it doesn't matter if you're afraid or not, because you know its source. And that's a big part of the training of the mystery school, is understanding the source of the depression, the fear and the anger, and that it's all made up. And so what you're able to do with this training that you have, this foundation of training in your imagination and intuition, is instead of listening to and acting upon your doubts and fears, what you do is you're able to get in touch with the courage and the conviction that's in your heart. The courage is the love that's in your heart, and the conviction is the will that's in your heart. Because what you're able to access is what I call your focused imagination. And with your focused imagination, you're able to transform this threshold from this red brick wall to a shimmering veil, which is a fundamental premise of the hero's journey. In that, and you see that a lot in many stories and many myths and many movies at the moment, because it's a fundamental truth. It's an alchemical principle. And you certainly see it in Harry Potter, don't you, where he arrives at King's Cross Station, and there's that brick wall between platforms 9 and 10, and then he engages his focused imagination, goes through it, and then it is actually a shimmering veil, and he crosses the threshold into the magical world where the Hogwarts Express is about to take him to Hogwarts. So it's no accident that these phases have been deliberately built into Harry Potter because J.K. Rowling studied the hero's journey. She was a student of the hero's journey. So it's why it's been purposely weaved into the story and to the characters. So, and it's the same with the mystery school, is that with this training, you're able to engage your focused imagination, transform that threshold, and then rather than refuse the call, what you're able to do is to cross the threshold into that magical world. You're crossing the threshold into your own personal realm of love and magic. And you anchor yourself there with your imagination and intuition into your sovereignty. And it's when you anchor yourself across that other side of the threshold, in hero's journey terms, that's where you meet the wise person. And the first wise person you meet, once you're trained in your imagination and intuition, is yourself. Because that's what it gives you access to. It gives you access to that inner wisdom. And what it also does is that you connect with an external wise person as well. There's always another wise person there who serves you to transform, who serves you, if you choose to go into training, to resurrect that power that's within you. And that's the role that I fulfill within the mystery school. This is what I've, having gone on my own hero's journey, my own wise person's journey over the last 20 years, this is the synergy that I'm able to establish with my students, with my heroes and with my heroines. And it's with that synergy that the journey is accelerated from this point onwards. Because the great thing about the hero's journey and the mystery school is you never have to go on this journey on your own. It's always created synergistically. And that's where you have the opportunity in hero's journey terms and in the mystery school to go into training with the wise person. And it's, as I said, it's in that training that that it becomes the catalyst for your transformation, because it's in the resurrection of your imagination and intuition that is the means by which you transform into your royalty. And what that training does then, when you step into training synergistically with the wise person, this becomes the foundation. This becomes the new life. It's like once Harry goes to Hogwarts and he's grounded in Hogwarts, even though he has to go back to Privet Lane in the summer, he doesn't then go crawling under the stairs and hide under the stairs from his aunt and uncle. You know, he's in his power, orientated in the magical world now. And it's the same with people that I train in the mystery school, is even though your relationship with the pretend world completely transforms, it ends up being a place to play, to create. It's the theatre within which you can bring your creations to life. And the great thing about establishing this foundation in the magical world and in your imagination and intuition is that you're able to enter into the next phase of the hero's journey, which is when you face your demons. And although this can seem really scary, it is actually the sweetest part of the hero's journey, the heroine's journey, because when you purposely face your demons with this foundation of training in your imagination and intuition and these alchemical principles, what you die to is the pretend world. You die to your pretend self. You die to it being real. You die to the illusion. And in that death, you then resurrect and you receive the treasure of your greatness. You receive the treasure of your royalty. And when you resurrect, you're always resurrected by the power of love. And you see that any great hero's journey, heroine's journey, myth or book or movie will do that really well, where the hero or the heroine is resurrected by a greater power. And it's when you receive your treasure that's when you transform. That's when you're living your royalty. And it's in that transformation that you have mastery over the two worlds. You have mastery over the magical world, where you bring what you love to life, where you're living your royalty. and you have mastery over the pretend world, and you can come and go as you please. You know, just as all the magicians in the magical world within Harry Potter's world, they can come and go from the Muggle world as they choose. The Muggle world doesn't have any power over them. It's a playground. So that's an overview of both the hero's journey and the philosophy of the mystery school with you, that I wanted to go through with you. And what I'll be doing in future videos is diving into each phase of the hero's journey in more depth, and what it means to be trained in your imagination and intuition, and drawing that distinction between your identity and your greatness. There's going to be lots of great content and exercises that I'll be sharing and unfolding with you. So thanks very much for staying with me during this video, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye for now.